In this video, we'll teach you how to mix your own cob using a tarp. Cob is an Old English word for lump. It is a mixture of sandy clay subsoil and fiber that makes a great building material. We will be using a tarp to mix our cob and several 5-gallon buckets to store and transport our materials. You can find subsoil beneath your feet in most places if you dig deep enough. Subsoil is a layer of clay and sand that exists beneath your topsoil. You can usually get away with anywhere from 50 to 75% sand, with around 70% being ideal. If you don't want to harvest your own subsoil, you might be able to purchase it by the truckload from a quarry for fairly cheap. If your subsoil is dry, it will be easier to mix it into cob if you soak it first. To soak your cob, simply pour water over your subsoil in a bucket. Once it has softened, pour off the excess water. Since the soil in our area is a little heavy on clay, I will be adding some sand to my mixture. I'll show you how to know if you need to add sand in a couple minutes. Straw is an excellent fiber for making cob. The fiber acts as reinforcement, adding strength and structure to the cob. Longer straw typically offers more strength. It is important not to confuse straw with hay. Hay will offer some fiber, but it is mostly sugars that will rot. Today I'll be using chopped straw since our mix will be used for a finishing plaster. This gives it a more finished look with less straw sticking out. You could also use cellulose for a plaster mix, although I recommend using regular unchopped straw if you are mixing cob for your first building project. Playing in the mud can be great fun, but it can also be, well, dirty. You might want to be prepared with a hose or a bucket of clean water to get washed off before you go back inside. Or the people you live with might want you to, at least. Before we mix our cob, we have to look at the properties of our subsoil. The first test we can do involves pressing your soil mixture against the palm of your hand, then holding it in the air to see if it will fall. If it sticks to your hand for more than a few seconds, you have too much clay in your mixture and should add sand. The next test is to roll a snake out of your soil. If your snake easily falls apart or cracks, you have too much sand in your soil. Mixing can be done alone or with friends. Lots of aspects of cob building lend themselves well to parties. It is important to mix your subsoil before you begin adding in straw to ensure a proper sand-to-clay ratio. This is quicker and easier if your soil is already hydrated. Amend your soil based on the results of your test. I will be adding only a little sand to my mixture. Some people with heavy clay soils will have to add significantly more sand. There are a few different techniques that can make mixing on a tarp easier. If you don't like to get your feet dirty, you can wear boots. You can also fold the tarp over your cob and then stomp on the tarp to keep your boots clean. Eventually, your tarp will become flattened by your stomping and stick to the tarp. It will help to pull the tarp from a corner to flip your cob. If the weather is nice and you don't mind getting dirty, you might find you feel more agile mixing cob barefoot. It will also help you to identify rocks or other debris and remove them from your mixture. To reduce bending over, you can also hold on to one corner of the tarp, slowly moving towards the other corner as you stomp, letting you roll your cob over several times before you reach the other side. You can experiment with different tarp sizes and batch sizes to see what works best for you. If you are less athletic, it might be more sustainable to work in smaller batches. Making cob can be both good fun and good exercise. Once you are satisfied with the consistency of your mud, you can begin mixing in straw. Uncle Mud tells me he likes to add as much straw as there is mud if he can. Work in batches, adding a little straw at a time using the same mixing technique as before. If the straw makes your mixture too dry, add some water. It is easier to work in the straw if your cob is a little wet, but if you make your cob too wet, you might be able to accidentally add too much straw and end up with a mixture that is difficult to work with. The straw should be worked in completely, almost blending into the clay.
Jamaican.
Cob!
That's a beautiful, beautiful cob. I love all the little fibers in it. Using that shredded straw there, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's going to give it lots of nice strength, tensile strength. Yeah, I would try to get more in there.
More fiber?
More fiber. More fiber. It's like breakfast cereal. More fiber.
Alrighty.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as much as you can squish in. Like maybe do it with half of it and until it like stops working very well, and then roll the other half in.
Okay.
Because yeah, the more fiber you get in there, the more sculpty it's going to be. Nice. Yeah. And that'll sculpt really nicely on the spots on the cottage. Like just above the stones there, and then inside and around the door and whatnot.
Oh, we're doing it on the outside too.
Yeah, eventually. Yes. It's not the thing that's urgent, but it's the thing that needs to happen. Yeah. Looking good. Looking good. How much sand are you putting in there?
Only a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it was pretty close to start off with.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. A little sand gives it some structure, but the straw is better structure, I think, for the sculpty stuff. Looking good.
Continue to add straw until you have a good mix. Remember that cob is a very forgiving medium, and there are a wide range of mixes that will work depending on your project. Even if you mess up, you can learn from your mistakes and fix it, unlike with more conventional building materials. If you want more resources and ideas about natural building, please check out Uncle Mud on Patreon, subscribe to Uncle Mud on YouTube, or go to unclemud.com.